Back here on this Saturday morning, Steve Kashul and Dr. Greg Nicholson. He's filling in this week for Dr. Brian Cole. Dr. Nicholson is one of the Bulls and White Sox team physicians and sports medicine specialist, orthopedic surgeon for Midwest Orthopedics at Rush. Appreciate you stopping in, Dr. Greg, and helping us out again this week.
That's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
And net proceeds from our show, Sports Medicine Weekly, go to support orthopedic research at Rush through the LiveActiveNow.org fund. Our producer, Shane Reardon. Our coordinating producer is Teresa Ann Seeger. Dr. Nicholson, this is kind of fun, this next segment right here. Have you ever trained in thin air with low oxygen?
I've skied at altitude and had that altitude headache, and you feel like your heartbeat is like a hummingbird, and then you acclimate. But I have not trained in lower oxygen tension, no.
Well, now they have the power to do simulated altitude training for pro athletes, weekend warriors, and everyday heroes. Really interesting stuff. Let's bring on the founder of WellFit Triathlon and Training Incorporated in Chicago. In 2009, this gentleman opened the doors of the first training facility of its kind outside of the Olympic Training Center program. WellFit Training Center attracts athletes and fitness enthusiasts from all over Chicagoland. He is Sharone Aharone. How are you, Sharone?
I'm fantastic. How are you guys?
Good. You like that intro?
Oh, it couldn't be better.
Good. Well, tell us, hey, what is your thing all about? It's interesting to read about. I want you to tell us about it.
So the truth is that since, I believe, 2003, I started coaching mostly endurance athletes, and then I opened my facility in 2009, as you said. And in the last couple of years, I got bored. So I decided to do something different. And I remember when I worked with the U.S. National Program in Colorado Springs, I was interested in altitude training. I started to do some research about it and realized that Australia has 16 commercial altitude training centers. Same goes for countries in Europe, and the U.S. only had 5 that you can actually get access to. So I did some research and realized you can actually get enormous amount of benefits from training at simulated altitude, and decided to open a facility here in Chicago. And so far, we've seen amazing results with people in a very short period of time. Our hottest program is only 4 weeks, and you got to be training in the altitude room for only twice a week for about 45 minutes. So, and we're extremely happy. We had improvement of runners going anywhere between 20 to 45 second improvement per mile on their test. So that was, to us, it's definitely a huge gain for their performances.
Yeah, how does simulated altitude improve performance then, Sharone?
So the idea is that the body will always adjust to a stress that you put on it, as long as that stress within its limited or physiological barriers. Reducing oxygen saturation in the blood, and that's what we actually do by having air that has lower level of oxygen, promotes the body to increase the capillary bed around the muscle fibers and increase the amount of enzymes that process oxygen inside the muscles. So in essence, the muscle becomes extremely more efficient. What our surprise was how fast that happened. So the first couple sessions, you feel like it's a lot harder than what you do outside. But then in about 2 weeks, maybe 4 to 5 sessions, you feel like, you know what? It's hard, but I'm recovering a lot faster. I can push, faster paces, and I can push higher wattages, and that translates into your racing. So the idea is to become a lot more efficient in absorbing and processing oxygen.
Our guest is Sharone Aharone, founder and head coach from WellFit Performance. I'm Steve Kashul with Dr. Greg Nicholson, filling in this week for Dr. Brian Cole at Sports Medicine Weekly here on 670 The Score, talking about the power of simulated altitude training for pro athletes, weekend warriors, and everyday heroes.
Sharone, we hear about the trouble when visiting teams go to Mile High Stadium in Denver when we see the Kenyans training in the mountains, lower oxygen tension. And for us as medical people, it's an issue. Your hemoglobin, which carries the oxygen, your hematocrit, which is your red blood cell load. I would imagine that the body would also try to produce more red blood cells and carry that limited oxygen, where that was with the blood doping kind of things where your hematocrit's too large. What you're doing here, it seems like you're getting that high altitude acclimation, and like you said, the muscles are becoming more efficient, but also I would imagine your red blood cell mass is increasing too. Do you see that happening too as you watch your athletes train?
Actually, no. There is that benefit only will come if you spend time at altitude. So the common notion is that you need to spend at least 3 weeks, at least 8 hours a day at altitude. That will increase your hematocrit and red blood cells. What we do is solely in the cellular level. And actually, they checked in all those research. They checked for increase in hematocrit, and you don't see that. You don't see increase in red blood cells. So we don't absorb more oxygen from the air and deliver it to the cell. We just use more. We have the ability to use more of what you already have.
It's fascinating. It's a little bit different. It's not the front end; it's the back end where you're delivering the
right.
oxygen.
So let's assume you have 2 liters of oxygen running around your blood, and I'm not going to be very specific about the numbers here. And on any given day at a high-intensity workout, you can use about 1 liter of that, right? Because you cannot use all of it. So high-intensity, you maximize at 1 liter. After only 4 weeks, and sometimes the workout is maybe 30 minutes, and the total high-intensity work is only like 2.5 minutes, okay?
Yep.
You will increase the ability to absorb more and therefore use 1.5 liters out of the 2 liters they have. So for hockey players, it would mean able to stay on the ice longer. For the basketball player, to have enough sprinting ability at the end of the game and an edge on the competition. The challenge is that most of the athletes and the coaches understand one thing, which is increasing your red blood cells, and therefore you need to go to Colorado. They don't understand yet the concept of simulated altitude training.
Now, you've been doing this since 2009. You've been involved in it for a longer period of time. Those gains that you're seeing at the cellular level, do you have to keep doing the high-altitude simulated training to preserve that, or is there is there some longevity to the effect?
So the truth of the matter is that I opened my facility in 2009. I started altitude training last February. So we're only in it for about, I would say, 8 months. So, but what we realize is this. The minimum that you want to train in the altitude room to get any kind of gain would be 4 weeks. You can get it 3 weeks, but you got to be in the altitude room at least 3 times a week. You can, depending, it's very personal, so you can keep the results for about 2 to 4 weeks. But what we realize that if you come after 4 weeks and you do 1 session a week instead of 2 sessions a week, you can elongate that period of time. We have one group of triathletes that have trained in the altitude room since continuously since February, and these guys basically PRing every single race. We have one lady that took what we call the booster program, which is only 4 weeks before your main event. She did it before a spring marathon. After 8 marathons being stuck at 3:45, she managed to improve her race by 9 minutes. By 8 minutes. And that's a spring marathon, which we all know in Chicago it's very hard to improve because it's limited running outside. And then she did it again before a marathon she did like a few weeks ago, and she improved by another 9 minutes. So after 8 marathons, all of a sudden she's improving by 8 minutes and then another 9 minutes in 2 consecutive marathons. And that's kind of the benefit that people get. And one of the things that people report, actually across the board, people report 2 main things. One, going up the hill is a lot easier, and we have a lot more power towards the end of the race. And I think this is all you can ask as an athlete, to have more power at the end.
Absolutely. Sharone Aharone, founder and head coach, WellFit Performance. How do people get a hold of you, Sharone?
wellfitinc.com. And we have all the information there. You can call our main office at 312-446-6230.
Once again, wellfitinc.com, wellfitinc.com. Great stuff, Sharone. It's really neat. And Dr. Nicholson, I always think about the Bulls when they go to Denver. It always seems so hard for that team to, Bill Wennington always talks about the burn in the lungs, you know. It's a tough place to play when you go there once a year.
Well, it's fascinating stuff that Sharone has shown us. Maybe we're thinking about it a little bit differently now. So great stuff. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Sharone.
Thank you, guys. Pleasure being here.
All righty. And when we come back, it's going to be our psychology of eating coach. She is a board-certified nutritionist. Karen Malkin will join us. Always some fun with Karen talking about the proper way to eat, when to eat, how to eat. Stay with us. Steve Kashul, Dr. Greg Nicholson, Sports Medicine Weekly, only on 670 The Score.